live Tuesday, 2:30, Osmo.com PGA show. Myself, Ben Raza, Fantasy Golf Man. I didn't even miss a week. I went down to Florida. It's like you would never have known. We're in business here. Bay Hill. I survived the DFS Open with only a minor sunburn. I don't know if you can see that.
No, you still look as pasty white as ever. So
no, it's fake news, man. I was burnt, and it wasn't even that hot. It was just when you don't go outside, the sun will do dangerous things to you.
Yeah, well, I was sick of people complaining about the weather. It was like whatever it was. I'm like, it's like 20 degrees here, like 15. I don't want to hear about people complaining about whatever it was. It's like 60 or whatever.
Yeah,
so I don't feel bad for any of you guys that went to Florida and got 60-degree weather because it's still freezing here.
I mean, it worked out for me. The one thing I don't like about Florida is it's hot. Like, I wish it was 20 degrees. What do I care? It was fun. You were a hot I told you before the show, and I'll say it again. You are a hot button topic. A lot of people want to know what the deal is with fantasy golf, man. So you're a man of mystery. What can we say?
I know. It's like, though, it makes me just, part of me wants to go next year, but then part of me just wants to keep the mystique alive and never go. And if, I don't know why people would be that intrigued with me. Just a guy that's posted losing golf bets on Twitter for like 7 years straight. But
most of those guys, they disappear after a couple years, but you stick with it. Maybe that's what it's your longevity.
You got to be, if you're going to post losing golf bets, you got to be able to make people laugh. That's the thing that I've learned. So you got to do one or the other. Either make people money, inform people, or make them laugh. I try to inform people. I try to make people laugh. The winning money part, we'll see how that goes. But it's
debatable.
It's debatable, yeah.
So here's what we got. We got Super Draft sponsor in the show, which we always appreciate. Changing the game with the multiplier mode. You guys know this. Everyone's really excited. We've heard a lot of people really enjoy the format. Rory's like 1X this week, but you have opportunities. And you actually talked about this indirectly on Twitter just before the show. And I actually want to dig into it a little. You were saying that guys are unplayable at the bottom of traditional salary. And I agree with that. In Super Draft, those guys are a little more viable because you're getting such an incentive to play. I don't know about gamuts, but some guys that we really would never consider in regular salary cap mode.
Yeah, I mean, I love DraftKings, but that seems to be like one leak is that there's guys at the bottom that no one's ever considering, and there's no reason to consider them, and that's like a wasted opportunity to add some more game theory. Make everybody at least have to consider playing them. I mean, yeah, we know Robert Gomez or Vijay Singh or whoever probably isn't making the cut, definitely isn't. But hey, maybe if they're cheap enough, maybe you don't even need them to make the cut. At least make us think about it. That was kind of the thing I was proposing. I think
absolutely,
I'd like to see it out of DraftKings.
And we'll see. But yeah, Super Draft, if you haven't signed up, your promo code AWESOMO, get $20 free on that first deposit. 100 more. Tomorrow night, we're going to be doing some special things with Super Draft, so make sure you tune in to the late night show, maybe some giveaways, some other things. But we are sticking with Florida swing, my favorite swing. We got through Honda. Before we get to API, and we will, did you watch Sunday? I mean, 6 under taking it down.
Yeah, I mean, I love that tournament. It's amazing. I tweeted that we need more tournaments like that. I love the carnage. I love that you don't have to be 20 under to win the event. And it's great golf, and it's not a long golf course. A little bit of wind, a little bit of firmness, and it just produces great golf. So, I would love to see every event be like that. I think it's amazing. So much more fun than like Mexico, where down the stretch it was like everybody is making tons of birdies and it was just ridiculous. So yeah, that's one of my favorite events of the year. Even without the strong field, I think it's amazing.
Oh, it's great. I hope they play a major there. I really do. I'd love to see it. Water lurking. It's not my favorite DFS week, I'm not going to lie, just because it's super high variance, but it was great. Tommy, Sanjay, I needed both of them. I did not have the permutations around them, so it didn't really matter, but it was a cool event to watch. And now we do move on. I don't know. I like Bay Hill, and that's where we are for Arnold Palmer. It's an invitational. I like a lot of things about it, but I also have some questions. But let's dig into the course first and foremost. We've seen it a ton. Talk about Bay Hill for everybody.
Yeah, 7,400 yard par 72, still Bermuda greens down here in Florida. And you're kind of right, not a great identity to the course. I think we've seen a lot of longer players win here, but like we say every week, it's an invitational. It's a strong field. The best players in the world are long hitters, and I think that's why you've seen guys, Rory, Day, Tiger, have great records here. But it's also a place where I think some of the shorter hitters can contend, like we saw last year, Molinari over. Why am I drawing a blank? Matty Fitz. We saw Kisner a couple years ago. Probably should have won this event. So, I think the shorter hitters can definitely play well here. So, it's really a middle of the road course. I'm not. Length is always an advantage. Scoring on these par fives is going to be important. But it's definitely a place where the shorter hitters can contend. So, I consider it really middle of the road type of course. Difficult. We've seen the winning score get up to 17, 18 under, but I think in terms of overall difficulty, like stroke average, it's played on moderate to more difficult, I would say. Not as hard as last week, but still, more difficult than your average track.
I think difficulty wise, it's perfect. If you play bad, you're going to be punished. If you play good, you can go. Oh, give me Honda. I do like that, but that's just different. Like the scores are just not out there. It's super technical. You have to think your way through. This is more gettable. There's no doubt. I don't think it favors a specific type of player. A lot of ways to attack it. It's a pretty strong field. We see people come out for Arnie, as you've mentioned. Leishman, Day, Rory types, Molinari, whatever. We'll get to him when we get to him in the show. We got chat ready to roll. What's up, everybody? Yeah, Kisner. We'll talk about him too. Don't you worry, but we're going to lead it off. 11-8. Rory, 1x on Super Draft. Best player in the world, then Fleetwood, then Decky, then Bryson, and leading 10K flat, Xander. What do you make of the top? Is it just Rory and everybody else for you?
Well, yeah. In a word, yes, right. It is Rory and everybody else. I just want to say I've been doing this, a weekly golf show, for probably like 5 years now, breaking down every event. I can't remember a couple things. One, where it seemed like Rory was such a clear favorite over the other guys. But two, these secondary guys all come in amazing form with amazing stats too. So it's really hard to, Rory's in a class by himself, but it's really hard to differentiate between those bottom four guys. We'll just start with Rory. Fifth, and third, his last three events. Sixth, first, and fourth, his last three starts here. The stats are amazing. And the win equity, it just seems like he should be more expensive than 11-8. He's 5-1. I know Vegas juices the hell out of these outright odds, but they're giving him a 17-18% chance to win, which is basically equal to Bryson, Hideki, and Xander put together. So the win equity is massive. It's hard to see Rory, not playing well this week. Does he win? I'm not sure, but it seems like, top 10 is like his floor. I know it's golf, and that's crazy to say. But yeah, he's in a league of his own. But these other four guys are really, they're all playing well. Tommy, obviously a chance to win last week. The ball striking was great. The ball striking was good in Mexico. Decky and Bryson both coming off in the same events, two really good finishes, 6th and 5th for Decky, 2nd and 5th for Bryson, where the ball striking was good. And then Xander, 3 events in a row where his ball striking was great. Didn't quite get much out of the putter, but top 25. So really tough. But Rory in a class by himself this week, obviously.
Is there a hard cap on 12K, do you think? Because I don't understand how he's not breaking that ceiling.
It sure seems like it, especially like they have the cap at the bottom at 6K where they're refusing to go down there. And he really should be more expensive than 12K or 11.8 for sure.
No doubt about it. So Rory, he's going to be massively popular, but I'm not going to get away. The appealing thing and the interesting thing is, though, like you said, these other guys are playing really well. They're just not as good as Rory. You have Decky, irons are cooking. Fleetwood easily could have won last week. Bryson, he bulked up, and now he's crushing it off the tee like a mammoth. And then Xander, who I really struggle with. He hasn't played here. I don't know. Probably going to get squeezed for me, to be honest. He gained over 10 strokes on the approach. In Mexico, that's obscene. But for me, I think it's Rory and then Decky. Take Rory out of it. Do you have a preference between the other four? It's tough.
It is tough. I would probably play Xander. He would probably be my preference just because he's the cheapest. I don't think as many people will be on him because you look at his last three finishes 14th, 23rd, 16th. That really doesn't catch anybody's eye, but the ball striking was really good for all those events. He just hadn't got it out of the putter. I think less people will be on him. I think he's cheaper, but he's really right there with Decky and Bryson for me. So me, it'd be Schauffele. But that'd be ownership based. I mean, if he's going to be just as owned as the other guys, then I'd go Decky. But I'm hoping less people will be on him because he doesn't have those really high finishes like Decky and Bryson does. Tommy, not playing him. He's a gutless Euro. We saw that on 18. On Sunday, people tried to blame somebody yelling in his backswing, which really that didn't happen. So yeah, fade the gutless Euro. But yeah, it'd be Xander for me as the second guy in.
The gutless Euros dominate Bay Hill. I will say that. But not to go on a tangent, and listen, I don't know anything about golf, but I know enough that you can't go in the water on that shot. You just can't. Like Mackenzie Hughes hit it directly into the grandstand. That's what you should do. You can't go in the water when you need birdie there. I don't understand. Like Steele going in the water, I totally get it. You got to go. You're down two. But for Fleetwood to end up in the drink is just shocking. So that was disappointing. But moving down, next batch of guys, we get into the 1.1x on Super Draft, the 9K range over on DraftKings. We've got Adam Scott at 9,700, the champ from last week, Sunjay Im, Patty Reed, Ricky Brooks. This is where it gets really wild. We've got Brooks, Day, and Rose. I assume that you have some interest in this 9K range.
I mean, it's intriguing, but I think the problem for me is it's hard to envision myself playing a lineup that doesn't have two of these 10K guys in it, probably Rory plus another 10K guy, which really makes it impossible to play one of these 9K guys. And I don't love any of them. I think Scott is interesting at 9,700, but that price is just, it's too close to guys like Xander and, Ricky maybe at 9,300. I don't love this range. And I think just because of the way that I'm going to build rosters, I don't think I'm going to need to go here.
Man, there's just a lot of interest. Honestly, in the betting market, I have some interest in these guys who haven't been playing well, but are super talented. When you look at like Rose, you look at Ricky, Brooks, there's some major concerns. There's no doubt about it. But God, I'm pretty into picking and choosing some of these talented guys and take some exposure, whether it's in the outright market or in DFS. But looking at the salaries here, I think Reed and Fowler, to me, probably where I have the most interest. Ricky, I think it looks worse than it really is. He missed the cut at Honda, but he didn't play at Genesis. He didn't play in Mexico. He was bad where he always is in California. He always struggles at Torrey. I'm not making too much of it. He comes to this tournament. He should have the putter in tune. His around the green game's been bad. That's really atypical. I think he's just fine. And then what do you make of Day? Last year, that was one of the funniest things of the entire year when he withdrew and then he went to Disneyland.
I don't like Day at all, to be honest. I don't know. It seems like it's been a year and a half, maybe since the beginning of last year, where we've seen really elite level play. I think he won at the beginning of last year. And it's just been a while since we've seen really top level play out of Day. I don't like him. I'd go back to Brooks at 9,200 if I was going to go down here somewhere. Rose looked bad last week. Brooks was bad, but a lot of it was the putter. He lost 4.6 strokes with the putter. He wasn't great anywhere else, but I don't know. You give him break-even putting, maybe he sneaks through the cut and things look a little bit different. The ball striking was solid at Riviera, even though he finished T43. I mean, I don't love him, but I don't think he's playing quite as poorly as it looks on paper. Obviously, the course history here, not good, but we don't care about course history too much.
Not with a guy like Brooks, that's for sure. That's irrelevant. What about Sunjay? You have any interest in coming off the win, or is he now just priced at a premium that you can't get to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love guys coming off a win, especially their first PGA Tour win. I think I said last week I've always been lower than the field on him, and it came back to bite me last week. So I'm not going to start playing him now at 9,500 in a strong field coming off his first PGA Tour win. But I mean, obviously the guy's great. I mean, we've been waiting for him to win for some time now, but yeah, it's a tough spot for him.
It is. I mean, listen, if you told me you like Sanjay Im this week, I wouldn't say, what are you, nuts? Like, he's a good player, and I think he plays just fine. But when you're talking about easily your second man in balance builds, he could be your first man in. That's a lot of opportunity cost. There's 5 guys above him, a ton below him that I have probably ahead of him at this point. So for me, that's really kind of how I would organize it. And then we get to Finau, 8,900. Listen, same story. He hasn't won. He's eventually going to win, I'm sure, outside of Puerto Rico. Stenson, Benny On, who you talked about it, he made the cut. Then he almost won. It just shows how quickly you can get back in it. Like if Brooks would have made it on the number, who knows where he finishes last week. What do you make of the upper eights?
Yeah, I mean, Finau always intriguing at 8,900. Wasn't great last time out. Yeah, I mean, I like Benny On at 8,700. Ball striking has been consistently good. And I mean, I know he's struck it well throughout his whole career, but it seemed like at the beginning of the year, maybe the ball striking wasn't quite there, and he's gained consistently the last 2 events. Obviously came very close to winning last week. So I like him. Leishman's interesting to me. I was really high on him in Mexico. Came in with great approach numbers his last 3 events, and then Mexico just really didn't have it. But a good history here. I don't mind him. And Morikawa, I mean, just every week, the guy, I don't think he's gained less than 2.5 strokes off the tee on approach in any event this year. It's just like you're locking him in for positive ball striking. I don't know, at 8,500 in this strong field, it's like the results haven't been there, but just consistently good. Some interest in him, but I think Benyon and Leishman would be the 2 guys I prefer in this 8K range.
Do you have a feel on Stenson? We really haven't seen him at all. He played, over in the Euro Tour a bit. We wanted to get some reps in before the Players, I assume, and I'm not surprised to see him here, but it kind of feels like we're flying blind taking a stab at 8,800.
Yeah, no, I don't like him. I mean, the 2 events in the East swing, he didn't play particularly well. We haven't seen him really outside of that. The course history is great, but it's going to draw a lot of ownership. It's probably inflating the price a little bit more than it should be, so I don't have any interest in him.
He feels fine for cash. I mean, he's got a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th. The guy racks up top 10s here. I think he plays just fine. I'm just not sure exactly what kind of builds I'm going to get him in, and would I rather have him or guys like Benyon, guys like I like Fitzpatrick, runner-up last year. Morikawa is someone I've been fading basically the entire year. We've talked about it a ton. I have more interest this week than I normally do. Just can't putt, as you said. And I think at 8,400, maybe some of the ownership will wash off. He's just so popular each and every week. This is sick.
Yeah, he's definitely a favorite of everybody.
I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, I know he's good, but I'm stunned to see the ownership travel every week with him. And that's really what's been keeping me off him. Kind of shady business, but we'll see. 1.25x on Morikawa in Superdraft. I do like that. And then we get to your boy, Bubba Watson, 8,300, Lee Westwood, Hatton, Billy Ho. This is an obscene range. Hovland to round out the 8K. Dead range for me, so I'll pass it right back to you. Any interest in any of these guys?
Yeah, not really a Bubba course, even though he has a couple top 10s. Played here quite a bit. He hasn't won, so we can't call it a Bubba course. Not interested in him. I mean, I think Hatton's interesting. 6th in Mexico. The ball striking was really good. It was coming off an injury, so I didn't have much interest in him at all there. But, I mean, obviously seemed great. 8,100, I think, is a good price. Billy Horschel, 42nd last week. Not really what people were looking for, but decent with the ball striking, coming off, an awesome ball striking performance the week before and at T9 in Mexico. And then he's coming off another T9 at the Waste Management. So 3 good events. I think he's playable, but Hatton would be the guy I would focus on in the lower 8 range. He was so good in Mexico. And I was worried about the risk, but obviously that wasn't an issue.
Yeah, Hatton is interesting. I was worried about the wrist as well. Turned out just fine. And we'll see. I mean, it was one tournament. I don't think he'll be overly popular. Coming off that, he's definitely going to garner some ownership. But you do have Billy Ho, you have Morikawa. There are other options, even Lee Westwood, who played really solid golf last week. The wild card to me is Hovland. I really did not like the spot last week on him, and he could not handle the Honda, just not really built for him. He lost on the irons, which is super atypical. I think he bounces back. Don't mind him in tournaments. Not going to prioritize any of these guys, though. I just don't like the range.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's guys in the middle 7 range that are just as good, just as playable as some of these guys in the low 8s.
All right. So now, and I it's amazing. We do a show every week, and I can't remember these things. Are you a Max Homa guy?
I'm normally not a Max Homa guy, but I might be a Max Homa guy this week.
I see. Okay, that's it. Talk to me, because I've missed out on this run. I know he's playing great, but man, I don't love the switch to Florida for him. He's a California guy, 7,900. I'm interested to see kind of how he plays. It's going to most likely be a spot I can't get leverage on, but you don't mind him at 7,900?
Well, it's going to depend all on ownership.
Yeah.
And you bring up a great point about him being a California guy and him coming to Florida, and that could, throw a wrench in some things. But I mean, everything has been so good. The finishes have been so good. The numbers behind those finishes have been really good, and the price is still fine at 7,900. We go over a couple of them. 5th at Riviera, where he's plus 5.1. 14th at Pebble Beach, where he's plus 1.5. That's only 2 measured rounds. He was 6th at Waste Management, where he gained almost 5 strokes off the tee and on approach. And 9th at Farmers, that's 3 measured rounds, and he gained 3 strokes off the tee and on approach. So the ball striking has been phenomenal over the last 4. The results have been phenomenal. It's just a question of, does the switch to Florida hurt him? And is the ownership going to be too high? I think he will be popular. And there's other playable guys here, but I mean, in a vacuum, I like him.
Yeah, I definitely on the other side of that. I like him more than Phil. That's about it. Which isn't saying much. I'd prefer Kisner. And then we work down to guys. So we got Answer, Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, RCB, and Ian Poulter I'm going to put in there. Do you have those guys, any of them ahead of Homa? Do you have any interest in them in general?
Yeah, I mean, I have Answer and Homa very close.
Okay.
I think super, comparable numbers. Answer was 12th in Mexico, where he gained 4.8. Riviera, not as good, but he was good in at the Saudi over in the Mideast, and he was good at the American Express, where he was a runner-up, and good in the fall series, ball swings. I mean, he was good in fall and then kind of picked it right back up and is playing well, striking it well. I put him in the same boat as Homa, maybe even more likely to win than Homa if the ownership is kind of, maybe I'd let ownership dictate who I'd play there. But those are the 2 guys I like. The other guy I would go down to would be your boy, JT Poston, at 7,600. Just kind of chugging along, nothing amazing, but he's gaining strokes off the tee and on approach, every single week. Not a ton, but it's just positive ball striking in 4 straight events. So I like him as well. Nothing great. 35th, 30th, 37th, 37th. But, positive ball striking in all of those events, that's intriguing to me. But I have him a cut below Answer and Homa.
So, and listen, he's a good putter. Maybe he's a great putter, but he's legitimately gaining every single week on the greens. I worry about that just a touch. He's got to get the ball striking up a bit. It's not been bad, but it hasn't been great either. I'm going to stick with Ian Poulter. I really liked him last week. He came in 27th. He gained in all 4 categories. I didn't think he scored as well as he played. And this is another good course for him. He's played here a bunch. He's made the cut every single year. A lot of middling finishes, but he really hasn't done anything with the putter in any of them. So we're really a hot putting week away with a guy like that. He gained 1.8 at Honda. If he can even replicate that, I think Poulter at this price tag is a guy I'm sticking with the villain role. I know you hate Poulter.
Gutless Euro.
He is gutless. Do you see how many gutless? Molinari won this tournament. Think about it.
That's pretty amazing considering where his game is right now.
Yeah, God, it's so satisfying. And I like him too in life, but my God, Molinari, when he was making, I'm not going to even get into what was going on. When he gets crazy hot, he was making birdies from the grandstand last year. So out of control. Now, I've been waiting. There was one guy, if we only had a 2-minute show and I could only have talked about one golfer, it would have been Charles Schwartzel, because you last week brought him up.
I put it on a tee for you.
You really did. And then you know what he did off that tee? He went in the water seemingly every shot, but then he rebounded by either eagling from the fairway, gained 4.8 with the approach, and if he got to the green, it was just straight buckets. He gained 9 strokes putting last week as well. Do you have an interest? Because I don't know what to make of these stats. He lost 5.5 strokes off the tee.
I do not have interest, and I'll tell you why. I think he'll be somewhat popular because he was 17th last week and he was 5th at Pebble, and he was a borderline elite player. I mean, he won the Masters. He was a much better player. You know, he'd be a guy where you'd see him in the 9K range, maybe in an event like this in his prime. I think people are going to see that and think, well, you know, maybe he's turning it around. But like you said, he was terrible off the tee and he putted the lights out. I mean, we're not going to expect that type of putting performance out of him again. I think it's a little bit smoke and mirrors. I don't like Charles at all this week.
Yeah, I would rather play Neiman and be more aggressive off the tee. I would rather play shocker Bud Cauley once again, who just, am I getting paid off? Not particularly, but he doesn't hurt. 42nd in Honda, lost 1.6 on the greens, gained with the irons. He's just playing fine. I'm going to continue to play Bud Cauley each and every week as a pivot off Harris English, who is going to be mega popular.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, he's made 9 to 10 cuts on the season, 6 top 20s. He's gaining positive in all 4 strokes gain categories. I think he's good. Maverick McNeely, I'm mad at myself for not playing him last week. He's been really good. He was a guy who maybe I thought, maybe the switch from California to Florida would hurt him. Nope, he had probably his best event, at least ball striking wise. He was a guy who kind of couldn't figure out how he was getting it done. He was finishing, had good finishes, but it really was hard to kind of dial in what exactly was happening. But last week, the approach was really amazing. The price, I think, is still really good. And we've talked about him. He's had huge amateur pedigree, you know, right up there with some of these other guys like Hovland and Morikawa. You know, and it just took him some time for it to come around. But, I mean, he was a guy a couple years ago, people were looking at him as the next big thing. And I think 7,400 coming off 5 good events in a row, and the approach game was really good last week. I like McNeely again this week. Maybe I should actually play him.
Yeah, that would be a good strategy. I was just like, I was like 6 years too early on Maverick. And Cam Davis, for the record. I was playing Cam Davis when no one knew he existed. Now he comes in like 5th every week, and I don't play him. Harris English, though, listen, he's lost strokes on the approach in 4 of the last 5. He's making a bunch of cuts. I think he's cash viable. If he's 25% owned, there's no chance I get over. It's not to say he's not a good play, but man, there's so many other pivots. Honestly, Ryan Moore is right there. I don't think he'll be even remotely popular. He's a guy, if you get some short irons in his hand, he can do damage at a place like this. We saw him at Genesis. He was fine. He was good at Amex. Didn't play in the Honda. This is where it gets pretty dicey for me as we work down to the 70, 300 and below range. You know, the champ is in there, Molinari, Kokrak, Norin. What do you make of the low 7s before we start dipping?
I mean, I really don't like any of these guys. I think Dahmen is playable. His last 2 events have been good. But far prefer guys in the middle 7s, just trying to figure out a way, you know, if I had to get in McNeely, or if you wanted to play the chalk English or a Dahmen, rather than some of these guys in the lower 7 range. Bit of a dead range, I would say, from 7K up to like 73, 74. I guess Gooch at the flat 7, he's a guy that I've loved.
Love that guy.
Yeah, and you know, up and down, kind of can never figure out what you're going to get from him. But he was good last week. He was T38, gained 3.4 at the ball striking, T10 at Riviera, where he's plus 6.3, and just a guy that can get crazy hot with the approaches when he's firing on all cylinders. Just one of the best iron players in the game. It's just, you know, very inconsistent. But I think 7K, I guess he would be the guy I would target down here.
So a couple names I'm going to throw out. Any interest in Kokrak?
No, I never played Kokrak.
Yeah, I'm with you there. His putter has gone away. His short game is atrocious. He's got some decent finishes here. The stats last year were ridiculous. He gained 12.5 tee to green and lost 4 on the greens. If he could replicate that, of course, but I don't see that happening. Next guy, CH3.
Never play like literally I never play CH3 or Kokrak. Never. I mean,
okay. Yeah, I mean CH3, listen, he used to be like a perpetual cash play. I don't know what exactly he's been up to in the sense that his game's a little all over the map. The putter's been bad. The irons have been sporadic. I think it's a pass for me as well.
His course history is hilarious. He's played here every year, and he's made the cut every year going back to 2009, but his best finish is T14.
Not getting those placement points. he does his thing. Listen, that's why he's always like a pseudo cash play. But for me, I would roll the dice if I had to. But now we get to the other side. 2 of our favorites, maybe your favorite golfer and my favorite golfer. If you had to play one of these, or if you like both, please tell me, would it be Knox or Griot? Or you have no interest in either?
Not really. If I had a gun in my head, I guess I'd play Griot. But Knox they've been bad. Knox, something's not right with him. I don't know. A couple weeks ago, it just kind of all fell apart. Would feel much more comfortable playing Gooch. Or if you were just going to say, let's take a flyer on somebody, I'd play Wolf at 7,100 and just hope for big things.
The Wolf, man. You know, the thing about Wolf, I think at least you can make the case that you're going to say you want to play like an off the tee type team. You can use him to anchor. You can play Hovland in there and get some aggressive drivers. The thing that really messed me up with Knox is he survived at like Farmers. I targeted him there and I thought that was really against the grain. He played good, went to Waste Management, played good. And then I was like, all right, he has a good stretch coming up. Like when he gets to Honda here, these are the kind of courses he actually thrives at. And he's just been terrible. The putting is broken. But even if it wasn't, the tee to green game is not in the best shape either. Now, I don't know if you've seen Griot's stats, but that's in another stratosphere of broken.
I've blocked him out. I don't even look at the numbers anymore. So I don't even know what he did last week. Besides, he missed the cut.
Yes, can confirm. So he's missed 4 straight cuts. Last week, he lost 5 strokes off the tee. He lost across the board. He only lost 1 stroke putting.
So that's good for him. He was running hot with the putter.
That was his best putting performance since Farmers. I'm sure in Puerto Rico he putted good, but I don't have that. At Waste Management, he lost 6 strokes putting. That's more what we're seeing. But even the irons, which are obviously the best part of his game, he lost, 0.2 of a stroke. You just can't be doing that. API is a good course for him. I'm going to have some because I always play him, but I'm keeping it very, very reasonable. I don't see any reason to go after him when you have other guys. Wolf, like you mentioned, Harmon is there, Keegan, Gooch. These are other reasonable flyers if you're just looking for some names. And then the last guy that I want to ask you specifically about is Carlos Ortiz. He rallied in Mexico. He paid off what I thought was bad chalk. 40% owned in cash. Are you going to continue that, or are you just going to let him be and let other people go there?
Yeah, I mean, he's been good. For the price, for where he's priced, he's been good. There's no doubt about that. The ball striking has been solid. But there's just so many guys down here that you can play for a couple $100 more or a couple $100 less that I think are superior plays to him. I think people will continue to go there because when a cheaper guy gets there, people will continue to click that name. So I'm not playing him this week.
Yeah, and then looking at Super Draft real quick, guys like Maverick, Gooch, who we talked about, 1.35x. That's a pretty good price tag. They're going to be anchors of that mid-range, depending on how you want to build. Me and Jason Roslin tomorrow night, we'll build some lineups there. We're going to do some fun stuff. I do want to say before we get to the cheapies, if you guys haven't signed up and you want to, PJ Strategy is the promo code. You get 50% off that first week. Give it a try. We have ownership. I know a lot of people in chat asking about ownership. We have the best in the business there. We've got projections. ton of good things. The tools from Alex. We've got the team in place. We got Slack, all that good stuff. And it is March Madness. Conference tournaments start tonight, so I'm going to be betting some just egregious teams. I can't wait. North Florida, our Sprays, they start their quest for the tournament tonight against Jacksonville at home. I know everyone's got it marked on their calendars. God, I really hope they can win the ACC.
Throw out the record books when North Florida and Jacksonville hit the hard
North Florida has
covered
more than any team in the country this year. And every show I'm on, I find a way to work them in.
Wasn't that your team going into the year?
Yes. I get nothing debatable if I ever get things right. But one thing that I had right was North Florida basketball this year. I bet them basically from start to finish. And it's been fantastic. And if you're in Slack, you would know that because it's been good. That's one really fun thing, and we're going to have some fun with it tonight. But working down, I got another guy. If I couldn't have talked about Charles, I would have talked about Corey Connors, who is your boy. Now, is it red flag time for him? He does not look good.
No, he lost a lot of strokes on approach last week, and that's concerning. I mean, I think a little bit about that course, it'll bring out some big numbers because if you're a little off, you can lose a lot of strokes really quickly because shots that would normally be in the bunker or the rough are now in the water. So I think maybe that inflates things a little bit, but he was not good. I'm not going there. I like Connors long term. But yeah, a red flag last week. I think there's some other guys in this range that I'd prefer over him. Your boy Munoz, I think at 6,900, he's been good. This Matthew Neesmith guy, the numbers have been good, but my problem with him is you look at the other guys, like if you're thinking about a really high finish, a guy like Matt Wallace, a guy like Danny Willett, just seems like incredibly more likely to actually contend in this event than a guy like Matthew Neesmith. But the finishes and the stats have been good. It's just, I don't know if I can click the name. It just feels like, T25 is his ceiling.
I think he's going to be a guy who people will use in cash. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be somewhat popular. I'm not saying I won't have exposure, but I tend to build differently than that. His stats are great. I notice him with the stats, but that is someone that I have no conceptual grasp on how good of a player they are. Matt Wallace, Sun Kang, Danny Willett, Munoz, like even Cameron Champ, if I was going aggressive bombers, like there's so many other guys that I have a better sense of what their game is about. So we will see what ownership is when it drops. But if Matthew Neesmith is even remotely popular, I mean, can you seriously think about like 15% on Matthew Neesmith? I'm not saying it's going to be that, but that's not happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be owned because the results are good and the stats are good. But yeah, it's just really hard to see him in this field. Can he have a good event? Yes. Can he pay off that price tag? Yes. Can you ship a large field tournament with him? It's like, can we really see him having a super high finish here? Probably not.
I certainly don't see that. Him to Munoz isn't even close for me.
Yeah.
He's closer to these other guys. Like Matt Wallace isn't playing well.
But you could see Matt Wallace getting it together and contending here.
And he's a gutless Euro, which is what we're looking for. None of this really matters, though, because Harry Higgs is just $100 less. And Harry Higgs is just an absolute stud. Look at this. Gained 3.1 with the approach last week. Gained 1.1 off the tee last week. Lost 5.5 strokes putting en route to the 58th place finish. I didn't think Honda was a good course for him. I really had minimal interest. This is a much better fit. He can be more aggressive off the tee here. If he can figure out the Bermuda putting, and I don't know if he can, that's a steal. 6,700, sign me up.
I mean, that's your boy. I don't know what I can add to that. I feel like Cauley, I feel like I can make a lineup of yours every week with like Cauley, Higgs, Rory, who's obviously the only good guy you ever tout. But it's like usually Rory and like 5 egregious players.
That's really what I do basically all the time. I stick to my guys because I believe in building in a macro way. Harry Higgs, 200 to 1 in the outright market. I have a betting article that is posted on the site. It's free. I hope everyone goes and checks it out. He is in there, not in the outright market, but I do like him. in some things, so I have some plays there if you're interested.
He's not a 10-unit whale play for the outright.
He's a like what? There are no other like mammals / fish creatures. You have fish and whales. There's no like dolphins, right? No dolphin plays.
No, it's one or the other.
Okay, he's not a whale play. No, he's in the mid range. Just 100 dimes on him, So just keeping it light. Sam Burns with the price drop after, he was massive chalk as we thought.
He was 4%.
Just kidding. I know. Everyone was like, Sam, and me included, Sam Burns like 60% owned or 55% owned. And then it's like, well, he's like a couple of percent owned in cash and 5% owned in GPPs.
I was wrong about him being a good play, but I was right about the fact that people weren't actually going to play him. And I said that. I'm like, he just seems like a name that when it comes down to it, no one's going to click. He looked good through 27 holes. He was right there, and then the wheels fell off. So we're definitely not going back to Sam Burns this week.
So I could do a whole show on this, and I had a great discussion with. We have some really sharp people in Slack this morning, and Cash Cow Hero is the guy in our Slack, and him and me were talking about Killa Keith, and I was saying, and obviously I minor validation from last week, and we talked about this on the show last Tuesday. I think Keith Mitchell's win at Honda is an outlier, and it's skewing people's perception of him. Do you like him here at 66? He did look better on Friday than Thursday, but I don't have a ton of interest in Keith Mitchell.
He was god-awful with approach last week.
That's correct.
God-awful. And no, I do not like him. I don't know what happens to some of these guys where they have two really good events where the ball striking is clicking, and then all of a sudden they come and it's just like they're just awful, and it really kind of throws me for a loop. But yeah, I'm not going. I can't go back there after last week. If you looked at the numbers, they were terrible.
I was not there last week, and I'm certainly not going to be there. We know he has a gear. He's a great off the tee player. I don't think the Florida swing is where Keith Mitchell should thrive, and that may be wrong, or I may be finding something that I think the public would disagree with me there. Now we get into the flyers. We've got Bo Hostler. We've got Zach Johnson's down here. Mark Hubbard. I have seen his name all over the place this week. Any interest in these type of guys?
No, there's guys down here I like. I think Patrick Rogers is going to garner some ownership. He's been playing really well. 5 of the last 6 made cuts. Nothing worse than T35. I think people are going to go there. I got one though for you. I got really excited this morning when I found this out. So Sam Ryder piqued my interest at 6,400.
Okay.
He was T53 last week at Honda, but he gained 3.6 with the ball striking. Putter was bad. And he was 3rd in Puerto Rico. So that's his last 2 starts. So, that was interesting to me. And then I look at his PGA Tour card. The guy went to Stetson University, which is real close to Orlando, grew up in Winter Park, which is right next to Orlando. Me being from Orlando, it's all bringing back lots of memories of my college years. So I got super excited that Sam Ryder played well the last 2 weeks. He was T33 here last year, and he's a local guy. So he is he's the guy I like here in this mid 6K range. I don't think a ton of people will be on him at all.
Interesting. And if you want even narrative street, Stetson is in North Florida's basketball conference. The Hatters coming at you, playing tonight.
It's a flat circle. What am I going to say?
Unreal. True Detective season 4 over here. I'm going to give you an egregious guy to rival Sam Ryder, and it's Danny Lee. 6,500, 47th last week, gained 4.2 tee to green, lost 2.9 with the putter. He's gained off the tee in 4 straight. Short game hasn't been good, but he's the type of guy that has a little upside. You look here, he's got 3 made cuts, a 31st and 2 17ths, and 3 missed cuts. So it comes and goes. We know that. I think he's a pretty live flyer to do a little damage this week. Extreme risk, but you're not going to need more than 1 or 2%. In terms of if you want to get over. I don't think he's going to be popular. So if you take 5% of Danny Lee, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I saw you talking about Danny Lee, it kind of made me a little less enthusiastic about Ryder, because kind of like we were talking about with like Neesmith versus a guy like Wallace or Willett, like Danny Lee seems way more likely. I know he's an incredibly inconsistent player. But if you told me one of these guys came in the top 5, Danny Lee or Sam Ryder, I would say it's going to be Danny Lee. And, the course history, that's just a product of his entire career. I mean,
Absolutely.
The guy's up and down all over the place, but when he plays well, he plays really well. And two of his last 3 events were good. The ball striking was good. The results, not quite there. But, yeah, I like Danny Lee, and it kind of made me second-guess Sam Ryder a little bit, so it pissed me off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Lee's the type of guy that you're just never going to – so the good thing about Danny Lee is ownership rarely masses there, because the reason that ownership masses is someone like Neesmith. They just keep making cuts. That will never happen with Danny Lee. Even when he's playing well, he's going to miss cuts frequently. It's just when you get him right, he's the type of guy. I honestly don't mind betting him for like a top 10 or something like that, because his upside is there. It's just he could be dead for last. He could withdraw. It's, full range of outcomes. Buyer beware, but he's my flyer. Putting God.
You're not allowed to say buyer beware. No.
It's implied. No, stone cold lock.
There we go. Nothing but locks.
Nothing but net. Denny McCarthy only gained 3 strokes putting last week, so he missed the cut. It does continue. I've never seen something like this. I have to talk about it every week. He gained three strokes putting, and that brought down all his putting metrics from recent weeks and months. So there is that. But there's a couple other guys before we get out of here that I want to talk about. And they're 2 guys that you mentioned more than me.
Okay.
And it's 6,300, Robbie Shelton and Doc Redman. 2 guys from the South. Do you have any interest in these type of players?
I do have interest. Redman, we talked about, this year he's been consistently one of the best ball strikers on tour, and that's top to bottom. I mean, he's gaining week in and week out off the tee and on approach, and he had a very good first round. I think he was tied for the first round lead.
He was cruising.
Yeah, he might have gone full Keegan and just blew up in the second round and missed the cut. But really, I mean, are we going to let one bad round, take us off, erase 5-6 events of solid ball striking, solid finishes? No. I mean, I think people will be off of him because he missed the cut, but really great first round, terrible second round. And that's the kind of golf that Honda produces. I mean, it's just like wild swings and huge variance. So I would go right back to him. And yeah, you mentioned Shelton, T11 last week. He's a Alabama guy. He went to Alabama, grew up in Alabama. So Southeast, we're assuming Bermuda I would bet is his preferred surface. Yeah. And then that's another thing that we talked about coming to the Florida swing. I think you're going to see some of these guys start to thrive. And Shelton played well last week. He's another guy with big amateur pedigree. Maybe not quite the Maverick McNeely type, but great college player. And yeah, 6,300, a good price. We got him on Bermuda. 2 good. The ball striking was good the last 2 events. Yeah, T11. I like him.
That's my min. I don't anticipate having anyone lower than those 2. I think they make for fine plays. I didn't see anything else. I saw Chappell down there. There's some names, but I'm not going to be reaching too much. Is there any other guy below them that you even have? Siwoo, but not for me.
No, nobody below them. And I guess off the top, maybe we should have said that it's an invitational, so a smaller field, 121 guys, 3 or 4 guys that have no guys like Rod Perry and Robert Gomez that have no chance of making the cut. But anyway, a higher percentage of the field going to make the cut. So you can take a couple chances with some of these cheaper guys.
Yeah, Robert Gomez is not going to make the cut, is he?
No, and that's what I was kind of talking about. I don't know what the price is because I'm not good at math, but if he was like
$1,000,
yeah, $1,000, whatever. I mean, how many DK points are you going to get out of 2 bad rounds? 20.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, at what price would 20 points be worth it? I mean, it has to be kind of like like NFL Showdown, where you have some of these really cheap guys and you're not expecting anything, but it's like, can they just do something in order to let me get these other guys in? I mean, make it so we have to think about it. At $6K, it's like,
it would be cool, because that would really flatten ownership across the board, because lineup construction would become wild. Like, you could have teams that were like, Rory, Fleetwood, Bryson, or something insane, a combo that's not possible. And And then if he ever made the cut, which is not going to happen,
No.
Yeah, Keith Clearwater and him should be in those type of price ranges when they come up in their annual one event for the year.
Right. And I mean, I'm not saying, guys like Hank LaBoida,
No.
they're real PGA Tour golfers. Like, they're playing terrible, but sure, leave them at 6K. I mean, they have a shot. But I mean, give somebody an incentive to think about playing Robert Gomez or Rod Perry or some of these guys that are like literally have no shot. Make them yeah.
I know this was brought up on Twitter, like Woosnan, the former champs that legitimately they are just not going to make the cut.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So it would be cool to do that. And again, on Super Draft, Gomez not in play, but some of those guys, you're getting like Hank 1.7x. That's massive. If you're going and you think you can make the weekend, that's a lot of multiplier points that you're up for grabs. So something to consider over there. All right, we've gone through all these dudes. Anybody have you bet anyone yet?
I have not bet anyone yet. This is not my favorite event. I love events like Honda where I think the course has a specific type. A real identity to the course and a weaker field. I like betting the weaker field event. It's really hard for this. This course doesn't have an identity. It's like Rory, Tommy, Decky, Bryson, Xander all playing great. It's hard to see past those guys. I think Answer was interesting. He was 80-1 to open, down to 66-1. I guess if I had to bet somebody now, I would bet Decky at 20-1. I just looked. He's the best price of the 5 elite guys, and the ball striking was out of control at Mexico. I think he gained 11 strokes off the tee and on approach, and that's coming off the heels of another good event at Riviera where he was plus 6.4. That was the event where he made the cut on the number and then was just nuke hot Saturday and Sunday. So it's really been like 6 nuke rounds in a row for Decky. I think 20-1 is fair. He's a guy that we've seen beat really good fields and beat really good fields by a lot of strokes. And that was a couple years ago, but he's a young guy. He still has it in him. So it's hard to look past these top 5 guys. So I guess Decky would be the bet for me. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger or not.
I bet Rose, and I don't even really like him this week. He's 40-1. And I just, this is a guy that I've seen enough Justin Rose in my life to know that, like all the top players, if they get going, if he turns around this form, 40-1 in this field is just too much. So I don't mind that. I'm going to look at a couple other guys. Maybe Decky is interesting. I may actually tail you on that. He's been good. He's definitely going to eventually break this drought. It's been a while for him getting in the winner's circle. A lot of names. And if Rory doesn't win, I think it is pretty wide open in terms of betting. So
I want to look at Decky's just the last 2 rounds from Riviera. Because those numbers have to be amazing. Because I was just looking at the full event, so the last 2 rounds from Riviera and the 4 rounds from Mexico, those numbers are just off the charts. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, no, Decky's been just absolutely insane fire. There's no doubt, and he can do this. Like we've seen him get into these modes. It just hasn't come together as often as we want. And yeah, I have it in front of me. Decky gained 4.7 and 4.5 strokes tee to green, and these are in rounds for the last 2. That's insane. He can do that, so I don't mind it. Other than that, the last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, it was brought up in chat. Right now, and we're doing this live, of course, so it's mid-Tuesday. There's massive wind concerns. I'm not going to comment on it now because I think it's just stupid. It can change so fast. If this forecast held, there would be serious ramifications to how I would build, and that's something tomorrow night at 8:30 we will break down in full, because if there's 30 or 40 mile an hour winds, that's something we have to take into account, but it's just too early to worry about it.
Yeah, I'll take it into account by just not playing anything. I hate wind events. I don't know why. It just, I get all wrapped around the axle trying to figure out the right plays, the right tee times. It's a pain in the ass. But yeah, obviously high winds, you're definitely going to want to put more of an emphasis on around the green. I think that's the one thing for me is some of these guys that just cannot scramble.
Death sentence.
Death sentence in high winds. Because I mean, it's not an easy course. I think it's a course that requires a good all around game in good conditions. Now you add 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, and you're going to have to scramble. That's without a doubt. Doesn't matter how good of a ball striker you are. So that's the one thing that I keep in mind when it's going to be high winds is you're going to need to scramble. And some of these guys like Connors, Grillo, no matter how good of a ball striker they are, they're going to have to scramble, and that's a lot of these guys' Achilles heel.
Yeah, and scramble, close to the hole, more variance generally and whatnot. But scrambling is a skill that rarely do you have like an insane, you can hole out, of course. Like if you're a terrible scrambler, it's hard to just start scrambling great, like time and time again. So keep that in mind. You want to be aware of it. We're going to bounce on out of here, chat. Thanks for stopping in every week. We really enjoyed it. If you could hit the like button on your way out, it really helps the show. Helps us, gives us that street cred. That's what we're all about on this show. If you have any questions, find us on Twitter, find us in Slack. You know the drill. And then tomorrow night, stop back. Like I said, we're going to be doing some fun things with super drafts, some giveaways and whatnot. So we hope to see everyone there. Good luck at API, and we'll be back next week for another golf tournament.